Hello again then, Hollows, and in this video we're going to be going through all of my personal favourite Dark Souls bosses listed from worst to best. So remember, this is my personal opinion. If you don't agree, that's perfectly okay. We're all entitled to our opinions. I am mine, just like you are yours. So let's start off at 26 with one we'll all agree on, shall we? The Bed of Chaos. We all know the Bed of Chaos. It's world renowned, being the worst boss in this game. It wasn't intended to be this way. Hidetaka Miyazaki even said himself that this is his biggest regret in the game. The boss is stupid, you just fall loads of times, it's completely unfair. It's just, you know you're going to die 3 times pretty much, or 4 times going through here, and we all just accept this fact, and then we move on. And number 25 is an opinion of mine. Just going to say this from the start. Seath the Scaleless. I absolutely hate Seath the Scaleless because of the curse. Curse is just, it's much too big an affliction to be putting on the player because they made a mistake in the boss. Curse is just really punishing. It kills you instantly and it takes away half your health permanently. I know the little creatures outside the boss, those clam creatures, they can drop purging stones. I know, which eliminate the curse, so therefore if you kill those on your way back to Seath the Scaleless fight, chances are you will get a purging stone which eliminates the curse. I still don't like it. I don't like Seath the Scaleless as a whole. He's invincible at the start, so you've got to go and eliminate the crystal at the start, which I find really annoying. His attacks are just stupid. Those little tentacle things that he's got, they just have a massive hitbox. When you're even near them, even though they're just flopping up and down, they hurt you. I'll tell you now, if I was standing next to Seath the Scaleless in real life, and his little tentacle legs were flapping up and down in front of me, it wouldn't nearly kill me. You know, it's just stupid. I think Seath the Scaleless, I think it's just me, it's my own personal opinion, I hate Seath the Scaleless, and I think he's one of the worst fights in the game. At number 24 we have another one we'll all agree on, the Capra Demon. The Capra Demon is bullshit because of the dogs. That's it, the dogs are frustrating, they are more your face every time you try and walk through the arena, and it will always take a couple of times for you to try and eliminate the dogs before you can eliminate the boss, and then after you've eliminated those, Capra Demon is really easy. It's just the dogs, and people in mods have made the Capra Demon a great boss, like the Daughters of, is it called the Daughters of Chaos? Or is it called something else? The Daughters of Ash, is it? Is it Daughters of Ash? I think it's Daughters of Ash. I was thinking Daughters of Chaos because of the game. I think it's the Daughters of Ash mod, which makes the Capra Demon a much better fight. But here is terrible, and I think we can all agree on this. At 23 we have the Ceaseless Discharge, just because it's not really a fight. You just walk to the fog gate and then he drops over. And then he drops to his death. Even if you fight him properly, he's still not the best fight anyway, because you just got to wait for him to do his certain attacks, bring his arm down, and then whack his arm, much like the one boss in Dark Souls 2. The something king or something, I can't remember. The Demon King or something, I think. And he's like that. You got to wait for his arm to come down and then whack his arm. It's a bit like that, and his fight's not really that good anyway. So even if you fight him properly, he's still not good. But because he's got that instant cheese where you can defeat him instantly, no one's ever going to fight him properly, are they? So he's at 23 for that reason. 22 we have Pinwheel for the same kind of reason. If he wasn't a boss that you fought later in the game, he probably would be higher, but he is one that you tend to fight later in the game, and you just kill him instantly. You whack him 3 times with your sword and then he's usually dead. If you fight him earlier in the game, like I have done once, he's a bit more like the Fool's Idol from Demon Souls. You've got to try and find the right one, but even then he's still not that hard. His attacks are a bit more punishing if you fight him early, but he's still not that tough really. So he's at 22 for that reason. At 21, we have a boss who is basically the opposite of Pinwheel, the Stray Demon. The Stray Demon has way too much health. He's an absolute tank, and that is his problem. It's just not fun to fight him. The other ones so far really have been either bullshit or too easy, and Stray Demon is not bullshit, and he's not too easy. He's just got too much health. And that is the problem with him really. His attacks, they do a lot of damage, but they are very well telegraphed, and once you know them, usually you can beat him without even being hit by anything. But the problem is, it just takes about 15 minutes to beat him because he's got so much health, especially if you go relatively early in the game. At number 20 we have the Demon Firesage, the reskin of the Stray Demon. The only reason why he's so low is because he is the third time you fought the same enemy. He's not that bad a fight really. His attacks are not as bad as the Stray Demon because you usually fight him a bit later and you have the experience of the Stray Demon when you fight the Demon Firesage. But the problem is, it's a reskin. It's the third time we've seen this guy and it's just annoying really, having to fight the same guy so many times. And it's something that you're just going to have to get through every time you play the game, and it's just not that great. So at number 19 we have the Gaping Dragon. The Gaping Dragon I think is just more, I don't know, he's just sort of there. He's not that great, and he's not terrible, he's just there. His design is certainly unique, but his attacks, some of his hitboxes are a bit stupid. Like the Stray Demon, he has too much health. He really should have had his health brought down a little bit, and the main problem is because you've got to try and survive so long without some of his stupid hitboxes whacking you. So it's not that bad. One should beat him a few times, but he's still annoying enough to make him lower in the list. At 18 we have Taurus Demon, another boss that's just sort of there. He's a bit too easy really to be any higher really, or to be that much of a challenge. I think the main reason why I put him lower in the list is because his design. I don't think his design is that good. I think his design is just very typical fantasy game. He just sort of, I don't know really, his design I just find very bland and uninspired. So that's the reason why he's a bit lower in the list. And the same applies to the next one, the Centipede Demon. The Centipede Demon is also just not the best design really. He's not really that much of a centipede, as he is just sort of a big weird blur, you know he's, that's all I can really say really. I don't think his design is that great. He just exists really. That's all I can say. It's just sort of there. And his attacks are not that bad. They don't do that much damage. They're very well telegraphed. You can dodge pretty easy, and he doesn't have much health. It's just a boss that you'll just sort of get through, maybe die once. You'll just get through it, and then forget about him. He's quite forgettable. That's what I'll say. He's a forgettable boss. There we go. At number 16 we have the Iron Golem, which is lower, again because of what I said in my easiest to hardest video. His hitboxes are broken. If he tries to do the grab attack, he can grab you even when you're standing behind him. He will still grab you for some weird reason. There's a certain very large radius, and if you're somewhere within that massive radius, he will always grab you. And for that reason alone, he's frustrating. The Tower Knight didn't have a move like that, did it, with that massive hitbox? Its legs could hit you, but it didn't have that huge massive hitbox. So that's why the Iron Golem is at number 16. Number 15 we have the Asylum Demon. The Asylum Demon again exists. He's a tutorial boss, so it obviously is going to be easy. His design's not great though. Again, he's just there. It just exists. That's it. At 14 we've got Dark Sun Gwyndolin. Dark Sun Gwyndolin, I'll give credit. You know what? It's a good idea. The infinite hallway with the boss teleporting backwards through the hallway, casting magic spells at you, and your main task is to catch up to the boss and get up to him quickly and manage to deal as much damage as you can in a short period of time. That doesn't mean the boss is that good though, does it? Again, just dodging the arrows is pretty easy, getting to him is pretty easy, and taking him down is pretty easy. Gwyndolin is a forgettable boss. I do think the series would go on to do this kind of concept of optional bosses much better. Optional bosses in every other entry in the series I think are far superior to this one. This is, I'd say, probably the only optional boss in all of the Souls games, including Bloodborne and including Elden Ring, which is actually just not very good, and something that you know, if you miss Gwyndolin, you're not really missing much, are you really? At number 13 we have Gravelord Nito, a very good visual design, a very good idea. He is very much the Lord of Death, and he revives these skeletons, and he has his skeleton armies fighting you. He looks like he's made of skeletons. He's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool boss, and it's a good idea having him be a Covenant leader as well, so you can sort of work for him, which is really cool too. But the boss fight, again, it's not really that much to write home about. His attacks are very well telegraphed. The main gimmick is the skeletons, which are attacking you, and he can kill the skeletons himself with his own attacks, which is pretty good and can help you. But he's not really, I'd say he's not the boss where you'll sort of die to him maybe 2 or 3 times, but he's not that bad. You kill him pretty easily and then move on. He's, again, it just sort of exists. The Bell Gargoyles are at number 12, and at least they were a proper challenge for new players. They're the first proper obstacle new players overcome, and they always kick people's asses on their first go through the game. They're there to teach you to upgrade your weapons and use Andre the Blacksmith, which is right by the boss. And they are the kind of boss, which I said before in my easiest to hardest rank, they're the kind of boss where they'll kick your ass quite a bit when you first fight them, but then once you've beaten them, you've got a true mastery over them and you can pretty much take them down, no problem really. Their attacks are very, very, very well telegraphed, but I think that's what the boss is sort of teaching you here. It's like, because at this point in the game, you've had the Asylum Demon, you've had the Taurus Demon, right? Both of those bosses, you're using the gimmick of plunging attacks. You don't really ever have to properly watch the enemy, watch the enemy's tells and see what the enemy is doing. The Bell Gargoyles are the first boss where you have to do that. That's what the game is sort of teaching you here. You have to actually watch what the boss is doing and then react accordingly. And this is, I think, the reason why it's the first proper obstacle for newcomers, because so far the game hasn't been really teaching you that. But the game does teach you that here. So, and I think even then, though, obviously, being a more veteran player, they're very easy to overcome, but I understand their place in the game. At number 11, we have the Moonlight Butterfly. The Moonlight Butterfly is very cool visually, and it's got a good gimmick to it, where you've got to dodge attacks and wait for it to come down. But the boss itself is pretty easy. It has very low health, and it's, unfortunately, I think the problem is it only has 3 moves. It's got the one move, which is loads of big, thick arrows. And then you've got another move, which is a load of small arrows. And then you've got the big blast that it can do when it jumps over the bridge. And then it goes down. So it's the problem with it is it's quite boring, really. You should have waited a while for it to come down. I think if it came down more frequently, but only came down for a short period of time, I think the boss would be a bit more engaging. Because at this point, it's just quite boring, unfortunately. But it does have a very good visual aesthetic. The same with the 4 Kings, which are at number 10. The 4 Kings have a very good visual aesthetic as well. They look really cool. Their moves are quite unique. The weapon is quite unique as well. But again, they're quite tough. They're sort of just like the Bell Gargoyles, really. They're there to make sure that you are upgraded as much as possible for the final fight with Gwyn. And they do that purpose very well. You've got to eliminate the 1 King very quickly before the next one comes in, before the next one comes in. And they're pretty good. They've got a very good aesthetic. But I think the problem with the 4 Kings is not that they're very mediocre. It's just that the bosses that come after them are even better. They are a good fight. The 4 Kings are a good fight. I've got nothing against them. That's why they've made it to the top 10. But the other fights are just better. That's really it, really. At number 9 we have the Sanctuary Guardian. The Sanctuary Guardian is a very cool visual idea. It does look really cool. I've never seen anything like it, really, with that kind of visual design. It's got very unique attacks, a very cool moveset, and it's very aggressive. It's a good introduction for a very, very difficult DLC, and the boss is accordingly very difficult, but just not as difficult as the other ones because it's sort of gatekeeping the DLC to you. So it's not going to be as hard as the other ones, is it really? At number 8, though, we have the absolute hardest of the hard, Manus, the Father of the Abyss. The only reason Manus is not any higher is because I do think he's a bit too hard. His attacks are a bit too damaging. He's a bit too relentless and crazy. You never really feel like you have a true mastery of him, even when you've beaten him several times. You don't feel like you've actually mastered the fight. You feel like you got lucky. And I think that's my problem with Manus. He's a bit just too crazy, a bit too wild, a bit too frantic. And therefore, fighting him is not fun the way it is with Artorias or Kalameet, where you feel like you've got a good chance to beat him because you have to actually master him. When you master him, then you feel like you get a good chance to beat him because you've mastered him. You've got a good understanding of how the boss works. With Manus, I've never really reached that point. I don't think I ever will. At number 7, we have the Great Grey Wolf, Seath. Seath is just a cool fight. He's just, I think partly because of the lore, obviously, which brings it up quite a bit because you knew that that he was Artorias's friend. He used to fight alongside Artorias, and they were working together. That's why he's got a similar moveset to Artorias. It's just a cool idea, a cool gimmick for the boss, and the boss is just, it's not too hard. It's actually a relatively easy fight, really, but it's still fun, and it's still a good idea, and still, it's just a cool fight. It's just a cool aesthetic and a cool fight. Next we have Chaos Witch Quelagg at number 6, which is also another just fair fight where you feel like it's a good fight. When you beat Quelagg, you get a good understanding of its moves. You have to properly master the boss's moves to actually beat it, and Quelagg is is definitely very good visually. We all know why. It's just a good design, cool gimmick. It's a good boss for Blighttown. It's good to end a terrible area with at least a good boss. So at least when you go through Blighttown, you get a good reward at the end of it. Quelagg is definitely a good reward. So at least there's that. It's a good fight. I enjoy it quite a bit. At number 5, we have Crossbreed Priscilla. Priscilla is here again, similar reason to Seath, really, where the lore is quite good. She was trapped in this painting because she was the daughter of, assumedly, Seath and Gwyndolin. Not Gwyndolin, sorry, Guinevere. And it's just good lore, good narrative, and you don't really want to defeat her. She's like the Maiden Astraea of Dark Souls, where you don't really want to beat her, but you have to. She's got a good gimmick. The fight itself isn't as fantastic, but the lore surrounding it makes it better. Again, like Maiden Astraea, that's why Maiden Astraea was as high on the list for Demon Souls as she was. It's similar to Priscilla in a way. At number 4, we have Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. Similar to Artorias, this fight is very much you in a duel versus the enemy. You have to master the boss's moves. It's a good chaotic fight, swords clashing, going crazy. It's just a good idea, and it's just very epic. You got the sad music, but it feels like it's the true culmination of the game. Gwyn isn't the hardest fight. It's pretty much medium, but you can parry him the same way you can parry any other enemy, which I think is what makes him feel more like you're on an even playing field here. You've fought through the game, you've got everything, you've beaten everything the game's thrown at you, and now you're fighting an opponent similar to you, so you can take on the role of being the Lord of Cinder. At number 3, we have Ornstein and Smough. Ornstein and Smough, the boss that kicked my ass the most times when I was mastering the game for the first time, getting into grips with the game and understanding it properly, and now I can beat them very easily. At the time, definitely not so much. They're a true, very difficult opponent, but they are cool. They've got a cool aesthetic, there's cool lore surrounding them, and they're a good boss. They're a very good boss. I always enjoy fighting them. It feels like a good challenge, not too hard nowadays, now that I've beaten them a few times, and not too easy. But they are sort of the game, making sure you have a good understanding of the game and the mechanics of the game, and you're truly mastering the game before you fight the last few bosses of the game. At number 2, we have Kalameet. The final 2 bosses in my ranking. Kalameet at number 2. I think the reason why my number 2 is the same reasons why my number 1 is my number 1. Both these bosses, they feel like fair fights. They're very, very, very difficult. Their attacks are very, very punishing, but when you die, you feel like it was fair. You feel like you died because of the mistakes you made. And you feel like it's because you made a mistake and you're learning from your mistakes. Every time you die, the game is punishing you because you made a mistake and you're learning from it. You're getting better. And then as you beat Kalameet, you realise that you've actually got a good understanding of the boss now. You know exactly what to do when the enemy does all these different things, and then when you beat it, you feel like you've taken down a massive opponent, and you feel like you've gotten better at the game as a whole and better at fighting that boss as a whole, and you do master that boss. And that's the same reason why my number 1 is Artorias the Abysswalker. For the same reasons why Kalameet's my number 2. You do feel like you're mastering this boss. Every time you die, you're getting better, and you're mastering it more and more and more. Each time you die, you're getting better. You're learning the boss better. And again, with Artorias, even more than Kalameet. Kalameet is a fair fight, but Artorias is a fair fight, and it feels like a duel. It feels like a true meeting of minds. Artorias has gone through all this kind of stuff, and he's an incredible warrior. You've heard all these tales about him throughout your journey through the game, and then you are here to sort of take that. You're sort of here to take I was going to say take that role, but you don't really take that role because Elizabeth doesn't tell anybody of your deeds that you've stopped the spread of the abyss. But you know what I mean. It's a good job. It's awesome. It's epic. Artorias is my favourite fight in the game, and I don't think I'll ever really like a boss as much as I like Artorias, but we'll see. We will see, won't we? Artorias is awesome. I've got it on my t-shirt, so that says it all. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe share this video with anyone who enjoyed it. It was good enough. Thank you again for watching. This is SoulReborn signing out. Have a good one.